Hello and welcome back to Kiss of Information. Today I'm joined with a very good guest of mine, a very good friend of mine. We used to be classmates in the United States of America back in the day. Today I'm joined with Reece Lowery. You might recognize him from TikTok if you had it a few years ago. You might see him on Instagram from time to time. He makes fitness videos, and today we're going to be having an amazing conversation. Hello, Reece. Thanks for coming on the show today.
How are you doing, man? I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So we had a bit of a conversation before recording, and one thing that we really started getting into was this whole idea. You and I agree that you really shouldn't care about what other people have to say about your own dreams. And you started talking about how you see a lot of people going down like degenerate behavior and hedonistic behavior when they really care. So I'm just curious to see, what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, so something that I started out on was I first got into weightlifting through my freshman year of high school football team. I ended up quitting that because it wasn't a passion of mine, but I really picked up lifting. And so the way that ties in is I started social media and things like that. And, especially in high school, but even when you grow up, people are going to tell you that you can't do things or that it's not going to happen or blah, blah, blah. But I really think that stems from a fear of you doing better than other people when they just don't want to put in the work. And I started my sophomore year, I ended up doing really well on social media, especially TikTok. And I ended up getting a sponsorship. I mean, I was 15, 16 years old, just working out. I was making a couple $100 a week of just holding up a pre-workout can and telling people to use my code. And I don't know if it was that people didn't like that or that they just thought the content I was posting just wasn't for them or what. But I mean, for example, I couldn't keep off of girls and guys' private stories on Snapchat, or people would always be saying something. A lot of people would say stuff at high school and stuff. And I mean, my mind at that time, I just knew I was gonna wake up in the morning, get my morning routine done, have a good day, go to school, come home, make more content videos, go to the gym, and just have a good time. And no matter how happy you are in life or what you're doing, especially if you're doing something that's good for you and beneficial, people are always going to have something to say. And so I feel like you just have to develop that mentality at a young age to just not care what people think and to just do you.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And also, but don't you think it's quite sad that it's always brought up, like the example I'll bring up is, how everyone sort of mocks the concept of New Year's resolutions and the whole phrase New Year, New Me. That's always mocked in the modern world, and I'm sure it has been mocked for 30, 40, 50 years. They always say, oh, it's so cringe or whatever when someone says, New Year, New Me, this year's going to be my year and all of that. Isn't that quite sad that when someone goes, okay, 2024, whatever, is going to be a W year, I'm going to start learning the language or going to the gym more or working out more at home, or, whatever it is, whether that's starting a business or I want to improve my relationship with my family, whatever that would be. It's always people then who come out and say, oh, that'll never work out, or that's super hard. And you are right. It is because I think they have an innate fear that the person who is saying that will achieve more than they will in their lives. But isn't it sad that you never hear those same people say, oh, do you know what? You shouldn't do that when they're going down the dark route. Maybe they're trying drugs, doing a lot of drinking every single day, a lot of drinking throughout their entire lives. You never hear those friends intervene at that point. It's always when you're doing something positive.
Yeah, so something I have to say about that, especially regarding the New Year's, is I have a twist thought on it. So my thought process is, if that's something you're truly going to do and you're going to stick to for the new year, new you, completely go for it. But a question I always ask people is when they say that is, why do you have to wait until January 1st? Why can't you start today? Because nothing's going to get done until you start that day. But given that, if you actually are going into the new year and going to do that and everything, I do see what you're saying with people regarding their friends and stuff. They immediately start saying stuff as soon as they want to do something positive for their life, because whether you want to believe it or not, a lot of these people aren't your friends, and even your closest people, you're never surprised when your enemy tries to hurt you, but you're always hurt the most by the people close to you and the people you thought were your friends.
Yeah, Absolutely, and I think that's a very good quote. I have to get that timestamp to maybe put that in the description. That's a banging quote. So you can claim that if you want, because I don't know who said it. I don't know if that's just you. So that's a banging quote right there. But it's absolutely true. I couldn't agree more, Reece. I really couldn't, because I also think it's so sad. Like, just like think of it genuinely. You're sat in a room with it with a friend of yours, right? And your friend's saying, okay, I am not happy with the way I look, or I'm not happy with my finances. So I'm either going to go to the gym, start exercising, whatever it may be, or I'm going to get another job, or I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to put some money into that, see what happens, but I have a good feeling. I feel like for you and me, the instinctual um, response should be, unless they're saying I'm going to invest in FTX, at which point you tell them to, okay, get the hell out. But the instinct would be to tell them, okay, cool, let me know if you need help. What type of business are you trying to invest in? Oh, okay, you want to have a clothing line. All right. I know someone who has a printing store. Do you want their business card or whatever? That to me is what the natural response should be, not by the masses, but by the close knit community, if you will. But by the masses, I'm never surprised personally. I don't get it that much. I don't really get it, to be honest. Or maybe I just don't look. I don't know. But the fact that you had people saying stuff on their private stories is crazy. And also, one thing I always like to say is I don't get it very often. I get the odd hate comment every now and then, but I genuinely don't see it. Like, it's just crazy. Like, sometimes I just go on my email and I go through all the comments I get, and then I'm just like, okay, I'll respond to this one because this one's got a question. This one brings up a good point. Maybe I'll pin that something. And then the people who always comment something negative or whatever, some crap that I don't remember, it's always the same pattern. No profile picture, fake name, no location ID, or in your case, they put it on their private stories. I feel like it's because deep down they know what they're doing is wrong and they're ashamed of it, but they still don't see anything else to do than, doing that negative thing.
Right. So yeah, the way that I see that is a lot of people, they're like, for lack of a better word, they're just common, and they don't like to be ambitious. They don't like to go after what they want. And a lot of people, I feel like, are just now like more soft, especially nowadays and in this generation. And something that I like to preach that people like to say is cringy or anything like that. I don't come off and say it directly, but a lot of what I like to try to preach, especially on my social media, is like masculinity and stuff like that. And everyone has their own perspective on what that is and how it works. But I like to preach that because I feel like that's like something, especially in men nowadays, is just going downhill, downhill. And even looking at the actual results and statistics of it, men's testosterone levels is down like three. I want to say it's, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it's at least 3 to 4 times down compared to what it was even 10 years ago. It's crazy.
And why do you think that is? Because I often see a lot of theories online, and they're either reliable sources or unreliable sources, which in the modern world I don't really know what the difference is anymore. But you always hear that testosterone levels have gone down, which I'm sure is true. If you analyze the world
Yep.
around you or the city you live in or whatever it may be, I'm sure you can see that, which is fine if that's the way they want to live. Who cares, right? But why do you think that is? Do you think that's got something to do with the stuff that they see on social media? Do you think it's a choice? Do you think it's a genetic issue? What do you think this is about?
I really don't think, I mean, I'm sure there can be that one wild case every once in a while where someone actually has a disorder and it's like genetic or like a medical condition or anything. But even if it was a medical condition, what are you going to do? Go to the doctor and they're going to throw some pills at you? The best result that you would be able to get in that scenario is that you go to your doctor and they give you like TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy, where you just get injectable testosterone. But even then, I feel like it's something that you can work on yourself, and I think that it's at an all-time low right now because of many reasons, but it's can be medication people are taking, it can be they're not working out, they're on social media watching too much, they're doing that, they're just getting all this information through social media. I remember I got my testosterone levels, like this is like a literal way to do it without medication and anything. I got my testosterone levels done twice when I was 17, and this was within a span of probably 6 months apart, right? So the average test level is around like 700 for I want to say 750 for what a 17-year-old is supposed to have. I'm just saying 17 because I'm 19 now. I was 17 when this occurred. And I think I had a testosterone level of around like 600 something. I got my blood work done. And then I started looking more into like self-development, things like that, how to improve your life. And I had started working out more. I think these were the three biggest things for me. I started working out more. I started taking cold showers every time I took a shower. And believe me, waking up at 4:30 in the morning to take a cold shower sucks. But I did it. I would take the cold showers, work out more. And then I was also more driven to go to the gym. I was working out. That was upping my testosterone levels in the cold showers. Between all this, I ended up going back to the doctor, getting my testosterone, my blood work done. I got my testosterone results back. And I kid you not, choose to believe me on this if you want. My doctor literally asked me multiple times if I was on steroids. And I said, no, why? She said, because your testosterone level is at 906 and the average for someone your age is 750 at like tops. Because there was like a specific range. It was like something down low and then like up to 750. And I was at 906. And I really do believe that that's because I just naturally increased my testosterone level from things that you can naturally do, like taking the cold showers, but doing that, working out, working hard.
And was it important for you when you started on this journey, let's say, was it important for you to do it naturally? You know, why was it that you didn't just go down the, I don't know, the medical route, hypothetically speaking, go, do you know what, okay, testosterone, I wish my levels were a bit higher. How come you personally didn't go, do you know what, I'll get TRT therapy? How come you wanted to go down the natural route, going as natural as you can without taking any supplements, getting any sort of injection therapies? What was it that made you think, okay, I could increase my testosterone levels quicker by doing TRT, I'm sure. How come you thought, do you know what? No, instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the cold showers and work out and everything else and go down the natural route. What was that about?
There's a couple reasons for that, but a simple answer: didn't want to be common, didn't want to get stuck in that system, none of that. Also, at the same time, if I do decide to get on stuff and say I did go to the doctor, I did go the medical route, and they start prescribing me TRT, not only is that going to cut into my finances that I didn't really have at the time other than the income from my sponsorship because I was like 17 at the time. Not only is it going to cut into that, but at the same time, once you, I don't know how much you know about it, but once you start taking in an outside source of this testosterone, your body stops producing testosterone because you're taking it from an outside source. So not only that, but also this goes into it more, is I'm like, me personally, one of my big goals is like, I want to have like kids and stuff like that.
I will say it is quite good that you were thinking, you know, long term. I don't hear many people, you know, talking about long term. Like I was having a conversation with a guy called Nick from a YouTube channel called the Millennial Think Tank. I had him on a few months ago, and we were talking more about citizenship. And we were having this conversation of we're looking at citizenship because we want to ensure that, okay, we both also want to have kids. So we have that in common, but we both also want to ensure that our sons or daughters or whatever it may be can have like the most freedom across the world. So let's say my kid wants to, I don't know, study in Europe. Okay, then I have a European passport, they can do that. They want to study in the UK, have a British passport, they can do that. They want to study, I don't know, in South America, okay, then I'm going to need to get a Latin American passport to ensure that they can do that for the future and just to ensure that they've got global freedom across the world. And I will say it's really good to hear again from a young guy like you, we're similar ages, that, you know, you are thinking about that long term, you are thinking about, you know, being a father, because I'm sure not many 18, 19-year-olds especially are thinking that ahead. They're probably, you know, just thinking about what place they're going to go clubbing, you know, tomorrow evening. So it is really good.
Exactly. And I mean, getting into that whole club scene, like that's part of why I didn't want to go into the university, stuff like that. Like I've never been like a big party or a big person. I'm not saying to shut it down completely and that I never do it, but the last time I did it was probably a couple months ago. I've never been big into parties, anything like that. Like that's just me personally, and I'm glad like that's the mindset that I have, because I would rather work hard at a young age and get stuff done so I can have a great life instead of partying, wasting my years in college, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on student loans just to come out and have to pay a bunch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the debt that's concerning, but it's also, if we go even deeper, like you know, I was just traveling quite recently. I was in Hungary, and I was with a couple of friends of mine, and we got there. It was quite late, so we had some issues with the train. When you get to that part of Europe, you know, the trains are quite unreliable, but I won't get into that. So it was a bit late when we got in, and we decided, you know what, those boys are going to go out clubbing. Now, the way it usually was, when they went out clubbing, I would stay back because I couldn't care less. I like to practice, like, whatever that word is, teetotalitarianism, or, you know, when you don't drink. So I thought, okay, the club's not going to offer me anything, that's fine, so I won't go. But I thought, okay, I do want to try it out to see if I do accidentally like it. So we go in Budapest, in the best part of the city in Hungary, and we get into this club. Thank God it was free, because otherwise, if it wasn't, I'd be furious. And we go in, and in a club, I'm sure you've been before, you know, like where the main DJ's playing and there's like 200 people all dancing and everything like that. I was there with a friend of mine because it was so crowded, and basically we got lost. We got lost from each other, and I was just standing there alone, holding my pockets because I had my phone and my keys to the place we were staying at in my pocket. And I thought, everything here is just wrong. Like, I won't even get into the smell that place had. You know, you could only imagine like 200 drunk 20-year-olds dancing, and you can imagine what that room smelled like. It was awful. But I was standing there. It was like 2 a.m. in Hungary, whatever, and I was just standing there thinking, what am I doing here? Like, this is so asinine. Everything about this place is just wrong. And like, it genuinely was. I thought, it's 2 a.m. I'm not going to say the boring thing and say you should be sleeping, but because I don't want to sound like some old guy. But it's 2 a.m. and you're young. Surely there's something better to spend your time doing than clubbing, getting drunk, and making memories that you won't forget because you're hungover the next day. I just thought it was just super asinine.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it is pointless. Like, especially depending on how much you drink, you're probably not going to remember a lot of what happened. You're going to wake up the next morning, you're going to feel like shit because you probably didn't hydrate properly or eat enough. You're going to feel hungover. Not only are you sure you can have that fun time that night, but you're something that I like to look at, and a quote that I heard was something along the lines of, when you're going out, you're sacrificing tomorrow's happiness, because tomorrow you're going to feel awful. You're going to feel hungover. You're going to have all of that going on. And for what? To wake up the next morning, have a big amount of money gone from your bank account that you don't even remember where it went because it went to drinks. They got you drunk. Something like, a question I always like to ask people, if you don't mind me asking, is, I mean, I know you said you haven't been out clubbing a bunch or anything like that, but what do you think is like the top 2 to 3 reasons people go out clubbing?
I've got quite a few because I'll be honest, Reece, I was walking that one time. I've only been clubbing. We have a saying, I've been clubbing twice in my life, the first time and the last time. So I've only ever been clubbing in Hungary when I was there a couple of weeks ago. It was awful, but I'm sure the club's the same everywhere. It was a decent club in clubbing terms. And I think there are multiple reasons. Number one, I've spoken about this a couple of times with a couple of guys on the podcast before. I think degenerative behavior in general, but let's focus on clubbing, is a super good example of escapism. Because if a young person's not happy with their lives, right, for whatever reason that may be, most of them, I guarantee, are Western problems, but other ones might not be. They might not like the job that they're working. Okay, what's easier? To look for something better, look for a place that might treat them better, whether that's a workplace or a new country, or is it easier for them to forget their sorrows in the alcohol and then just escape for 5 hours or whatever? I think escapism is the biggest thing as to why clubbing is so popular. Escapism is huge in the modern world. Number two, I feel like so many people do it that a lot of the people who you like to call the common folk, they have a feeling that they're missing out on something. Now, to anyone watching this, if you're a young dude and you're trying to avoid hedonistic routes in your life, do not go out clubbing, or go once, see if you like it. But if you don't like it, don't worry, you're not missing out on anything. Improve on yourself, because the people that are clubbing there, apart from the DJ who's earning money, they're not improving on themselves at all. So I think escapism and peer pressure, I don't like to believe in peer pressure, but I think the excuse of peer pressure are the two main reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people like laugh when I say it, but I choose to not believe in things that take power away from me. So if I like feel tired or lazy, like sure, like I'm probably don't feel like doing this thing, and I probably am actually tired. But if I just tell myself that I'm not tired and that I have stuff that I need to get done, when I wake up in the morning, regardless of how I feel, if I feel like happy, exhausted, mad, sad, whatever it is, I'm still going to get the same things done that I have to get done that day.
Yeah.
And something I recently told someone, which they really took to heart and have been applying it in their life, is I don't know if you've ever noticed, but have you ever had a thing where you're like, wow, like say for example, like, wow, I should really go to the gym, right? And then you like go to the gym once, or like you like don't go, and then the next day you're like, oh wow, I should really go, and it keeps on this cycle of not going. Well, the way that I put it is you eventually you will get fed up with yourself and you will end up going. And I feel like that's how a lot of the bad habits break, is you get put into this like spiral of not completing something so much that you get upset with yourself and you end up forcing yourself into it, which I think is a positive thing.
And I think it is that, again, genuinely setting yourself the goals and always seeing the goal in front of you, because I feel like, what we were talking about New Year's resolutions a bit earlier, it's very easy to forget your goals if they're not in front of you all the time. And I think that's one of the main problems that people face genuinely. They say, okay, like you were saying, I'm sure everyone out there has always gotten that 3 a.m. motivation for whatever it might be, of going to the gym, starting a new business, or learning Japanese or Jonga. But they forget about it the next day because they're busy. But if the Japanese flag is always in front of them, or the word business is always in front of them, or if the dumbbells are always in front of them, or the Bhutanese flag, they're gonna do it.
Right. And like, why do you think people get that 3 a.m. motivation? Because I used to be a big person on that, and then I would do something and I would go to bed and wake up the next day, and it would repeat the same cycle of not wanting to do stuff. And I think it's because you start to like sit there and get in your thoughts, especially like late at night, and like it finally hits you like something needs to change, and you start to change it, and it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable, I don't want to do this, that kind of thing. But you do a little bit of it, you go to bed, you wake up the next day, and you kind of just push it out of your mind.
Yeah, I think it's done genuinely on purpose. Like, and I'm not saying per individual. I think the modern world, without sounding too much like Moon or some Tumblr user, I feel like, again, the 3 a.m. motivation thing is sort of mocked now. Again, that is probably because a lot of people don't stick to what they think. But I remember there was some TV show back in the day that I saw when I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10. And the guy in it, for the life of me, I can't remember what it was, but I remember the guy saying, never do something after 1 a.m. because it's not rational. But I have to disagree. I feel like that 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. burst of motivation or burst of instinct, when you think, okay, I want to, again, go to the gym or learn a new language or do more, whatever it might be, it's something that you think will improve your life. I feel like that's the point when you yourself, as the individual, are the most rational. Why? There are no outside influences. There's not TikTok there. There aren't the negative peers around you. There's no influence in your inner circle when you're trapped inside your bedroom whatsoever. And that's when you truly know what you want, I think, is between midnight and 4 a.m. when you get that burst of motivation. Because when you are awake, in most people's terms, whether you're going to school or going to work, you have to sort of change your mindset to everyone else's temporarily to ensure that you aren't mauled, metaphorically speaking. But when you're alone in the dark with your own thoughts, you know what it is that you want. And I genuinely think that's why it comes about, because you can think rationally at those times.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being a thing. Something big on what you said is you don't have the outside influence. I'm a big believer in the outside influence. And even if I talk to people and they say, I'm not going to let the outside influence affect me, this, that, I'm not going to listen to their opinions, your brain picks up everything, even if you don't realize it because it's subconscious. Subconsciously, your brain takes in information and it will become a thought in your head, which then goes into consciousness, which then, debating on how big it is, can lead to action. So when people say that they're not going to listen to the outside influence, you really have to be conscious that you still could be, and put your foot down and make sure you get your stuff done. And especially early in the mornings like that, like I used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning all the time to work out before school and stuff like that. It was so nice. I didn't have all this social media going off. There were no notifications on my phone. I could just sit there and just dial in with what I had to get done and what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I don't do it anymore as a routine. Might be a good thing to get into again. Not too sure what time yet, because one problem is I get a lot of ideas at night, but if I wake up early, then the sleep schedule is screwed up. But I don't think it's that important again. It might be, but again, I'm not too sure. But I genuinely think when you're, and it doesn't matter whether you're staying up super late or waking up super early, I think there's something out there in the world that when you know that everyone else is asleep or doing something that you're not doing, it enhances the flame inside of you. It's like it pours some gasoline on your inner flame when you're like, okay, no one else is doing this. Everyone else is either asleep, clubbing, or doing some other crap, whether that's really early in the morning or really late at night. So that's going to ensure that I can do this now. But I feel like during the day, I don't know, there's something about me that feels like it's a bit different. It's a bit harder to do things that you are deep down passionate about during the day, when again, there are those outside influences around you, whether you try to let them influence you or not. I don't think they influence you and me as much as people would like to say. I'm sure it has some level of influence, but I still think our minds are clearer when when we know that everyone else is doing the wrong thing. And I think that's why it happens.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say, like, I used to be very big on that, and I still am. If I go, I just keep using the gym as an example because that's what a big thing I like to do. But if I want to go to the gym and, like, say I've had a really busy day, I didn't get up early that morning to do it, and it rolls around, like, sure, like, I have my body telling me, like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to do this. I'm just gonna suck it up, take some caffeine, do whatever I got to do, go to the gym. And by the time I get there, even though I didn't want to go in the first place, something I notice is that I then enjoy being there. And on top of that, nobody's really there. So I can do what I want to do, whether that's put my camera up, film, or just put my headphones on, lock in with what I want to do with my body physically, or whatever it is. And the whole time, even if it's not fully conscious in the front of my head, something that always goes through my head in general is that I'm doing something that people aren't doing right now. Like, who's at the gym at 2 a.m. working on their body after having a 14-hour day or whatever it may be of work and school and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And although for me, the gym isn't really the example that I use, for me, it's always learning languages or studying languages. I think you study a language instead of learn it. Like, there's always that appeal. Like, I heard one, I was talking with a couple of people in school about a year and a half ago when I was big on studying Icelandic for some reason. I don't know why, in Latin. No idea why. They're both quite useless to learn on the international sector. They're all right languages, but if you want to speak a globally spoken one, who do you know that speaks Icelandic? No one. So it's not the best language to choose in that regard, but I was studying it quite hard, and along with Latin at the time. And a couple of people said, oh, yeah, but you have time, we don't have time. And I'm just like, look, I'm not doing an intensive Icelandic thing where I've locked myself in a room full of Icelandic words and Icelandic movies, and then I have to understand it. Like, although this app isn't the best app in the world, no matter what the memes say, Duolingo, I think, is far better using than TikTok if you're just using it as a consumer. Create a different story. But the whole point I was telling these people are, okay, everyone's got 3 minutes. Now, if you don't want to learn a language but you want to do something else, that's fine. But I don't like the excuse when people say they don't have enough time, especially for something, sorry, as minuscule as that. A Duolingo lesson takes, what, 3 minutes? I guarantee everyone who says they don't have time spends more than 3 minutes watching TV or on their phone. So, it goes back to that.
Yeah, I encourage everyone right now to go on their screen time and look at how much time they're spending on social media. A lot of people, and I mean, a lot of people are higher than this, some people are lower than this, but your average screen time on your phone for a lot of the people watching this is probably like 7-8 hours, which is crazy. I mean, like, imagine what you could be doing with 7 or 8 hours, but then you're going to sit there, go and say, oh, I don't have time, or oh, I don't have this, or oh, I have this in the way. Like, look at your screen time on your phone. See how much time you're spending on Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know who it was that said this, but I heard a quote once where this guy was basically saying, with all these people who are using, just scrolling mindlessly on TikTok, just not even taking in what they're watching because it's so mundane, with the gameplay split screen underneath it, and everything's just wrong. And those AI voices, it's just bad in every sense of the word. And one thing that I heard someone say is, if you were to go back in time to the 1500s and you were to show people the modern phone, and you were to tell that person from like the Tudor era or whatever, okay, this device has all of the world's information on it. Do you think that person's going to be watching 8 hours worth of crap? Or are they going to be researching stuff, going like, okay, if it's got all the information of the world on it, all right, let's find out about the Spanish Inquisition then. Or let's find out about money. They're not going to be using it to just mindlessly scroll all day. They're going to be using it to learn something, which I think a lot of people should adopt nowadays too, with the powerful device that a phone is.
Yeah, totally. And something I want to add on that you said is when you were talking about the video of them playing video games below and then like the AI voice, the reason, which I don't know if you've noticed, but the reason, like, say you have like a clip on your phone that's set up rectangular, whatever they're talking about is usually on the top, and you know how like on the bottom is like the video game or whatever they're playing. Well, the reason that that's set up is because people's attention span is so short. So if you're like sitting here listening to like a video, I don't know, of say like a celebrity talk about something like semi like actually important or something like that, they're gonna have the video game on like below because they know that people don't have enough of an attention span, but they also want to get their watch time in on that video. So that's the reason that they set it up like that. And a lot of people don't even make that correlation.
Yeah, I know. I'd heard that before. I actually think it's a fairly well-known British editor who started that concept, like a fairly big TikTok editor online who started this whole concept. And there's something so sad about it. Like, we're, what, 38 minutes into this recording, and I guarantee most people who click on this, I hope they're still here, but I guarantee most of them aren't, because there's not going to be any gameplay on this video or any AI voice or any captions or anything like that. It's just going to be this podcast with a couple cuts to put in the right places. That's it. I think it's really sad, especially for long form content that might bring value to someone. The fact that they don't stick with it to find out what value they would learn from it. But then again, it's their choice. Like, I just found it crazy again. Like, whenever I was on the train or whenever I'm in any city or whatever, even I see one thing I never understand is I see people walking in public on their phones, which to me is a bit dangerous anyway, because here in the UK, what's popular is that people just run up to you and snatch the phone out of your hand. But another thing is they have like earbuds in and AirPods in and headphones on, and they're not even listening to the reality around them. Like, it's a bit of an extreme example, but let's say an attack was to go down, or a public shooting or whatever. How's that person going to know? How's that person going to ensure their safety if they're listening to TikTok on their headphones? It is super dangerous in my opinion, and that's not even getting into the attention spans. Like, what you were saying about the attention spans, like to go even further to that, I heard a guy online talking about how you know, like when you're on the TikTok app or whatever, you have to scroll like this, and if you want to refresh, you have to like scroll down and then it reloads.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's maneuvered as if you're in a casino drawing the lottery.
I've never thought of that, but that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't take credit for that because it was a fairly big influencer who said that. But when he said that, I was like, oh, they're absolutely right. And I heard a relative of mine also say that when you're scrolling, eventually, and I've seen this with people I know, they've scrolled so much on their phones or whatever that when they're not using their phones, the thumb that they use to scroll is still like interacting with nothing. Like it's still going like tapping here or doing something like that. And it's because they are genuinely addicted. They're not addicted to the videos, they're addicted to the, first of all, the dopamine, and second of all, the reactions. But also dopamine for me as well. Like you were talking about the retention being huge for you. For me, one of the big things that I'm trying to work on and trying to understand fully is how to maximize your dopamine. Like, and I feel like TikTok and all these social media apps are the poison for your healthy dopamine.
Well, even the dopamine goes into like the retention and stuff. Like when you're sitting there like watching whatever that stuff or just like doing it on your own and you release, your dopamine spike is like the highest that it can possibly be, and then it comes down below base level and eventually slowly goes back up to base level. But if you're sitting there like retaining and doing all of that and like not constantly on social media or not getting these outside sources of like dopamine, then you're really able to reset your dopamine receptors and enjoy the simple things in life that a lot of people don't have the attention span to appreciate anymore, which is kind of sad, like the sunset or how like the weather is outside or just spending time with someone that you care about. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree, Reece. It is super sad in one regard, right? But I don't know, maybe this is a bit too harsh, but don't you also feel a bit of a lack of sympathy for the people who have messed up their attention spans by using these social media apps and using those degenerate websites? Because, technically speaking, it's their fault. They didn't have to write that URL in. They didn't have to click download that app. They didn't have to do that. They chose to do it.
Yeah, I think that overall, like with how much it gets talked about and how much information people take in, is like it seems like such a huge thing to people, but what they don't realize is that they're like just literally addicted to their phone, addicted to social media, things like that. Like I had a conversation with someone the other day, which I thought this was crazy, but like I'm also looking from my perspective. So like something we touched on earlier was like the what I like to call the art of not giving a, you know what I mean? So like you don't really care. So like for me personally, like if I'm trying to promote my sponsor or just like my social media, I'll post on my main Snapchat story like once a day at least, or like something like that. And like I've heard like literally just from last night, like people are concerned about what other people think. Like they're like, oh, I only like to post on like my main story like once a week or like a couple times a month because like it looks this way or that way or something like that. And I just think that's like so crazy. People like take such account into that of like what people think about them. And I just personally, that's not how I want to live my life.
But literally, I couldn't agree more. Like yesterday's video, the video that went up yesterday when this video goes out, it was literally about that. I was in Amsterdam when I made this video. And Amsterdam's a hedonistic city. We can get into that later, but it's, I hate it, never going back. But basically, I saw this video. A friend of mine sent it to me, and it was about this woman who was talking about how she doesn't like posting her achievements on Instagram anymore. I don't remember what her achievements was, but the example I used was she was some marathon runner, and she said she doesn't like to post about it anymore because, let's say she posts something about, I don't know, something that people like, like some music crap or some tour that some celebrity gossip drama crap, all of her followers are going to watch that story or watch that post and go and interact with it. But if she posts like she came first place in the marathon, the 90 people that watched her story, none of them are going to interact with it. And her whole point was that she has a load of what she likes to call spectators on her Instagram account. And in my opinion, again, that's sad, just like how you were saying. But on the other hand, isn't that what you want? Don't you want spectators on your Instagram account who maybe don't like what you're posting, but they're still following you? So why should you care about what they think? Because the whole point I made in that video was that it's her Instagram account, it's your Instagram account, it's my Instagram account. My Instagram account is not going to be about someone else. My Instagram account is going to be about me. Your Instagram account is going to be about you. Her Instagram accounts are going to be about her. It shouldn't be about other people or what they think.
Right. So I think a valuable point that you can take from that, just from what you said from the story in the account, is like everyone's gonna be watching, but not everyone's gonna like what you do. So that's one way to look at that. And another way to look at it is that, yeah, you have this account and you're posting what you want, but probably what she's thinking as being the marathon runner and everything is this was a big accomplishment for her. So she probably is looking, even if she doesn't realize it, for like some like outside source of like dopamine or just validation or something like that. Because when she posts, she put all this work into it. She probably wants to see that people are liking what she's doing and supporting her and things like that. So that might be another reason why she stopped doing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't thought about that before, but I don't agree that that's a valid reason not to post it. But I understand the perspective of and how someone can get to that conclusion. You know, it's obvious that someone can get to that conclusion if they are even just a tad bit concerned with what their peers or other people might have to say. But then again, it goes back to this. Let's take the marathon example. If no one interacts with it, or even if she gets a couple hate comments or hate responses or whatever it is, does that mean she now comes last in the marathon, or is she still first place? You know, it doesn't take away from her achievement.
Yeah, it doesn't. And something that I can add in about that, and I'm glad that I'm not this way, is a lot of people will do stuff strictly for how other people will view them in social media. Like, for example, I'm sure I'm not going to say everyone or many, and I mean, maybe a marathon isn't the best example just because of how much work and how hard it is, but a lot of people will sit there and do something only for social media. Like maybe there's that one person out there that only runs the marathon so that they can post on social media. And I think that's a wild thing for people to do. And if that's like your only drive for it, I think you really need to look in the mirror at your reflection and understand that you're doing stuff for the validation of others and not for what you truly want. And I think that as a man, we're put here to see how much pain, just speaking as a guy's perspective, because I'm not a woman, I'm not a girl, and I think there is a differentiate between men and women. I think that as a guy, we're put here to learn things and struggle, and that we're not here to completely be happy. And I think that that's a big thing for a lot of people, especially guys. If they post only on social media, for example, you should look at that reflection in the mirror and think like, what are you doing, and see what to change with your life.
Yeah. I don't know what are your thoughts on like going to concerts and music festivals? I don't know how popular they are there, but when you like get drunk and like dance to music in the fields.
So I have my own perspective on that. I mean, let's take concerts for example. Like my music taste is like very small, but I listen to music. I don't listen to a bunch of like the rap music where they just talk about drugs and killing and all that stuff. Like I find that quite pointless. But there are like some music and even some rappers I will listen to that I think are influential. And given that, like for example, in early December, I'm not a big person to go to concerts or anything because I only listen to a certain amount of people. But I'm going to a concert in early December of someone who I listen to who I think does give an important message and stuff like that. And me personally, from my perspective, I won't be drinking when I'm there. I won't be going there to get drunk or anything. I'll be there to like listen to like them and enjoy my time, but also like notice, because I have noticed like how they've changed my life and stuff like that. But that's just how I view it and how I'll be attending the concert. And I know 95% of people aren't going to view it that way, and they probably will be at the concert or the festival or whatever it is, getting drunk and just wasting their time with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a bit sad because they won't remember it. Like you're going to go to that concert and you're going to enjoy the music, fine, yeah, whatever. And but you're at least going to remember that. Maybe you'll, I don't know, meet him or her after the show or whatever. Just thinking about it that way, you'll always have that memory. But the people who are going to be getting drunk or doing drugs or anything, they're not going to remember. So again, it's going to be a good memory for you, I think. Hopefully the concert will be good and you'll enjoy it and it will be what you want. But again, it just goes back to the thing where because people see it as a social norm to be getting drunk, they're actually tarnishing their own memories. Like one thing I always like to think about is when I'm old as hell, like super old, like beyond bedbound, like 100 whatever, let's say, right, by eating rice every day. I want to look back and pretty much be able to play my life as a movie again, right? These people who are doing that, what are they going to play back? A bunch of fuzzy memories that they don't quite remember from their 20s? I don't want that. I'm sure you don't want that either.
No, and that's actually crazy that you said that, because that's something that I've been thinking about like a lot recently, and I haven't even mentioned that to anyone. So I'm glad that like there's someone out there that has that other perspective as well. I want to be able to like remember things, live a great life, have great memories. Like I said, I think we're here to like, as a guy, like go through pain, suffer, learn things, stuff like that. But also at the same time, what is life if you don't have those great memories to hold on to and things like that? Because at the end of the day, you do get one life, you do get one chance at this, and try not to fuck it up, but have a good time while you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, I never really understood this quote. It was always one of those quotes that was a bit like, okay, yeah, it's kind of like a deep quote, whatever. But I understood the grasp of it, I don't know, like maybe a couple months ago. And it was that famous quote when that person says that every man has two lives, and the second one begins when he realizes that he only has one. And I'm not saying that when I found that out, I was blown away. I never thought I was some cat with 9 lives. I'm not saying that, but ever since I did start to think, okay, I've got one shot at this, no matter what, you might believe about afterlife or reincarnation, that's a different conversation. But if you do believe that you have one life, then you are going to really try to start to maximize everything you can do in a day. And I think that is quite a good thing to realize that you do only have one life as far as we know, because I think it ensures that you aren't just going to hopefully live a mediocre common life. You're going to hopefully try and conquer something, whether that's a language, I don't know, move into a new country if you want to be an expat, whatever it might be. That it's going to give you some motivation, I think, and I think it's really good that it does.
Right. And a quote that I heard, I don't know if you're familiar with Justin Waller, but a quote that I heard from him, which I really took to heart and like something I kind of already knew, but it kind of just drove me forward even more, is that is one of the best days that you're going to have in your life is the day that you realize nobody's coming to save you. And that's going to be like so, I look at it as that's going to be so freeing, but also like so like, wow, like I need to get my stuff locked in at the same time, because you have to realize like literally nobody's going to come do the work for you. Nobody's coming to save you. You just have to get what you have to get done on your own and completely make your life of what you can make of it.
Yeah, 100%. It's a very good thing. One thing, I don't follow him a lot I'm not on social media a lot, apart from when I'm doing research or uploading. I'm not really on it, but I saw this about 8 months ago, I think, and genuinely I thought this is such a good quote that I'm gonna tell some people who I think will find value in it, who probably don't know who he is or haven't seen it, maybe a different demographic. But he said once that it's fine if your life isn't going like this, and that everyone has ups and downs, but the difference is that you should try and have ups and downs and still keep growing. So it's like you don't go like this, you go like this, but you're going up still. Even if you are having some downward days, you're still growing in the long term. And I thought that is such a great way to look at it, because if you genuinely start thinking that way, you'll realize that even if something bad happens, you probably can't have a bad day if you're going to be growing every day, metaphorically speaking, of course. And I think that's quite a great way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you can sit there and have a bad day. You can, I don't know, fail a math test, whatever it is that makes you have a bad day. But at the end of the day, the failures and the mistakes are what make you grow as a person, and you learn from them, and you know how to do better next time, and you become more wise over time.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not just that. One thing I like to think about in general is that I'm not. The word failure intrigues me because you hear it all the time, but it means different things. You know, to the academic person, the person who doesn't go to the top end university is a failure. To the millionaire, the person who isn't a millionaire is a failure. To the person who aced the maths test, the person who failed it is a failure. To the teacher marking the paper, to the person who didn't do well on their homework is technically a failure. A failure is used so many times that I genuinely think it doesn't mean anything, because the way I like to look at it, let's say, for example, like there was one course I did that I really wasn't a fan of. I didn't even try, right? It was a backup course, didn't care about it. But I still did it anyway. But I knew very well that I wasn't going to get the top grade or whatever, didn't care. Now, yeah, okay, I failed on paper a couple of tests, couple of quizzes. It's fine, because number one, I didn't really care about that subject anyway. But number two, what is failure? Failure is just you learning a different way. It's like, let's say you want to climb a tree. You're bound to fall down the tree eventually. Does that mean you failed at climbing a tree? No, it just means like maybe you have to try grabbing onto a different branch from time to time, which is fine. I genuinely don't think the word failure means anything in the modern world anymore.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it like that before, but that's a good perspective on it for sure.
Reece, it's been a great conversation. I'd like to finish this conversation off with a final topic. It's going back down to the positive self-improvement part. We've talked in quite good detail on this podcast about our goals, what we want to do, what we find important. You said that it's important for you to have children. Couldn't agree with you more. But in life, I think you have to pursue happiness. Now, I'm not talking about it in the degenerative hedonistic sense of the word, but what do you think you need to do in your life to be happy?
Like my personal goal, what I need to do?
Yeah, like when you're old and you're thinking back at your life, what do you want to remember? What do you want to do?
Well, I want to remember the path that I took to get there, how hard it was, the struggle, know what I went through as a person. And after all of that, I think my ideal life would just look like a great wife with the same political beliefs, religious beliefs as me, with a couple of kids running around, financially stable, far more than financially stable, to be honest. And people say that money doesn't buy happiness, but I mean, personally, when I've had a good amount of money and I've bought something, sure, it doesn't buy permanent happiness, but I've been pretty happy about it. That's all I'm going to say with that. But I think to have overall fulfillment for me and happiness in general is going to come from that and knowing that I'm doing good for the world as an overall person.
Absolutely, and that's beautiful. And that's going to be the end to our podcast. If you guys have made it this far into the podcast, then you obviously you're going to want to follow me on social media as well. You're going to want to subscribe to this channel, but you also are going to definitely want to follow Reece on social medias. I'll have them linked down below in the description. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, Rumble, doesn't matter. You can find me and Reece on our social media platforms. Reece, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I had an amazing conversation. I had an amazing time chatting with you today. Love to have you back on the show anytime. Just let me know when you're available. And yeah, it's been great talking with you.
Of course, have a good one.
Yeah, cheers.